He dated beautiful women, but married the one who did this to him on the first night. Ryan used to think attraction was about the woman every man noticed first, the woman who walked into a restaurant and made conversations slow down, the woman who looked expensive, mysterious, unavailable. Until one night, a woman showed up to a backyard dinner in jeans, an oversized sweater, messy hair, no perfect makeup, no performance. And by the end of that evening, she became the only woman he couldn't stop thinking about. Not because she tried to impress him, because she didn't. And that's what most people misunderstand about real attraction. Sometimes the person who stays in your mind is not the one trying hardest to look unforgettable. It's the one who makes your nervous system finally stop performing too. Ryan was 35, lived in Austin, worked as an architect, and from the outside, his life looked perfect for dating apps. Good job, clean apartment, gym routine, nice car. A dog named Cooper, friends who called him the stable one. And Ryan had no problem getting dates. The problem was what happened after the first hour. He could sit across from a beautiful woman at a rooftop bar, listen to her talk about travel, career goals, red flags, standards, favorite wine. And somehow, after 2 hours, he would leave feeling like he had interviewed a brand, not met a person. Everything was polished, everything was impressive, everything was correct, but nothing felt real. Then he met Hannah. She wasn't the kind of woman who entered a room waiting to be noticed. She entered like she was comfortable being there. That's different. Ryan met her at his friend Mark's backyard dinner on a Friday night. Just grilled food, string lights, cheap wine, and people pretending not to feel socially awkward. When Ryan walked in, Hannah was sitting on the edge of a patio chair, holding a plate with a burger on it, laughing at something Mark's wife had said. Not a cute laugh, not a controlled laugh, a real one. The kind where she forgot for half a second how she looked. And that caught him. Because people don't realize how rare that is now. So many people are constantly watching themselves from the outside. How do I look when I laugh? How do I sound when I talk? Is this attractive? Is this too much? But Hannah laughed like she wasn't editing the moment. She had on jeans, white sneakers, and a gray sweater that looked like she had owned it for years. Her hair was slightly messy from the wind. No dramatic entrance, no performance, just presence. And presence is dangerous, because people who are truly present make everyone else realize how much they've been acting. Mark introduced them near the cooler. Hannah, this is Ryan. Ryan, Hannah. She looked at him and said, "You're the architect, right?" Ryan smiled. "Depends. Did Mark make me sound interesting or insufferable?" Hannah looked at Mark, then back at Ryan. A little both. That was the first thing he liked. She didn't try to flatter him. Most people think confidence is dominating a room, but sometimes confidence is simply not rushing to make someone like you. At dinner, Ryan kept noticing how normal she was. She ordered what she wanted. She didn't pretend to know a wine she didn't know. When someone asked if she cooked, she said, "Honestly, I can make eggs, pasta, and one soup that tastes different every time. So, no, not really." Everyone laughed. But Ryan noticed something. She didn't say it like an apology. She said it like a fact. That kind of honesty hits differently in a world where everyone is quietly auditioning. A little later, a spider crawled near her foot. Hannah jumped so fast, she almost spilled her drink. Ryan laughed. "You okay?" She pointed at the spider like it had personally threatened her family. "I'm a nurse. I can handle blood, needles, screaming children, and panicked parents. But that thing, absolutely not." And again, she didn't pretend. That was the pattern. No mask, no perfect image, no fragile performance that needed protection. She wasn't trying to look like the kind of woman a man would brag about. She was just being a person. And that made Ryan strangely quiet, because he realized how exhausted he had become around people who were always selling themselves. Women, friends, co-workers, even him. Everyone had a version, the successful version, the attractive version, the healed version, the "I don't need anyone" version. And then there was Hannah, casually admitting she feared spiders and couldn't cook, while somehow looking more real than anyone he'd met all year. Later that night, Ryan found himself beside her near the fence while Cooper ran around the yard. Hannah asked, "So why are you single?" Ryan smirked. Starting strong. "I don't mean it like an accusation," she said. "You seem normal enough. So, I'm curious." Most women ask that question like a test. Hannah asked like she actually wanted the answer. Ryan gave the usual one. Work, timing, dating is weird. Hannah looked at him for a second. That sounds like the answer people give when they don't want to say the real one. Ryan almost laughed it off, but something about her calmness stopped him. So he said, I think I got good at first dates and bad at letting anyone get close after that. Hannah nodded slowly. That makes sense. No dramatic reaction, no instant analysis, no who hurt you, just that makes sense. And somehow that felt more intimate than flirting. Then Hannah said, I think a lot of people want chemistry, but what they really mean is adrenaline. And when peace shows up, they call it boring. Ryan looked at her. That sentence stayed with him. Because it was true. He had dated women who made him feel adrenaline, the chase, the uncertainty, the delayed replies, the perfect photos, the subtle competition, the feeling that he had to stay impressive or lose access, and he had mistaken that tension for desire. But standing beside Hannah didn't feel like winning a game. It felt like finally putting something heavy down. That scared him more than attraction, because a lot of people say they want peace until peace shows them how addicted they are to chaos. The next morning, Ryan woke up thinking about her. Not her outfit, not her body, not some fantasy. He remembered how she laughed, how she asked questions, how she didn't shrink herself, but didn't perform either. He remembered that, around her, he hadn't felt the need to become more interesting than he actually was. That's when he knew something was different. But old habits don't disappear just because someone healthy appears. 2 days later, Vanessa texted him. Vanessa was the kind of woman Ryan used to think he wanted. Beautiful in a way that made restaurants feel like stages. Long, dark hair, perfect makeup, designer bags. The kind of woman who could make a man feel chosen just by letting him sit across from her. They had dated briefly months earlier. It had been intense, unclear, dramatic, addictive. Vanessa was never fully available, which made Ryan more interested than he wanted to admit. That is one of the oldest tricks of attraction. Unavailability creates imagination. And imagination is where obsession grows. Her text said, "Still alive, architect." Ryan stared at it too long. There was the old pull again. The game, the challenge, the possibility of being wanted by someone who never gave too much. He replied. That Friday, Ryan sat across from Vanessa at a cocktail bar downtown. She looked flawless. Of course she did. Every detail perfect. Hair, nails, perfume, dress, posture. She knew how to be looked at. And Ryan understood why men chased her. But something was different now. For the first time, he noticed how tired he felt after 20 minutes. Because with Vanessa, every sentence had another sentence underneath it. Every compliment had a hook. Every silence felt like a test. Every story reminded him she was rare, desired, unavailable, above the average. Her beauty was real, but the performance around it was exhausting. Then the waiter asked if they wanted food. Vanessa smiled and said, "I'm not hungry." 5 minutes later, she quietly ate half of Ryan's fries. Ryan almost laughed, not because it was cute, because it reminded him of Hannah ordering exactly what she wanted without needing the moment to make her look a certain way. That's when Ryan realized something uncomfortable. He had spent years thinking he was choosing women, but really he was choosing how he wanted to feel about himself around women. With Vanessa, he felt selected. With Hannah, he felt seen. And those are not the same thing. Being selected feeds the ego. Being seen touches the nervous system. After drinks, Vanessa touched his arm and said, "You should come over." There was a time Ryan would have said yes just to prove he could. But that night, he didn't. Not because he was morally superior, because suddenly the old game felt expensive. He smiled gently and said, "I should head home." Vanessa studied his face. What changed? Ryan thought about lying. Work, early morning, tired. Instead, he told the truth. "I think I'm starting to like people I don't have to perform for." Vanessa laughed softly. "Well," she said, "that sounds boring." Ryan nodded. "Maybe, but I think boring might be underrated." He left the bar alone, and for the first time in a long time, alone didn't feel like rejection. It felt like self-respect. The next week, Ryan asked Hannah out properly. Just coffee and a walk near Lady Bird Lake. She showed up in jeans again, hair pulled back, no attempt to transform herself into someone else. and Ryan felt something he wasn't used to feeling before a date. Calm. Not the absence of attraction, the absence of threat. They walked for almost 2 hours. Ryan told her about his father, a man who taught him how to work hard, but not how to talk about fear. Hannah listened without rushing to fix him. That mattered. Because a lot of men are surrounded by people who want their strength, but don't know what to do with their vulnerability. At one point, Hannah asked, "What do you think people misunderstand about you?" Ryan smiled, uncomfortable. "That I'm calmer than I am." She didn't interrupt. He continued, "People see me as stable, but a lot of my stability is just control. If I can control enough things, maybe nothing falls apart." Hannah nodded. "That sounds lonely." Ryan looked at her. 2 words, that's all she said. But those 2 words reached a place compliments never did. Not impressive, not masculine, not successful. Lonely. She had seen the cost of the image. And when someone sees the cost, not just the image, intimacy begins. A few months later, Ryan brought Hannah to a company event. The room was full of polished people. Expensive dresses, sharp suits, controlled laughter, professional smiles. Then Vanessa appeared, because of course she did. She looked stunning. The kind of stunning that makes other women check their posture. She hugged Ryan just long enough to be noticed and said, "You look good." Then she looked at Hannah, a small pause, the kind of pause people use as a weapon. "And you are?" Hannah smiled. "Hannah." Vanessa looked her up and down quickly. Not obvious enough to be rude, obvious enough to be felt. Ryan saw it. And for a second, old instincts returned. The desire to prove he could still attract women like Vanessa. That is the ego's final trick. It will try to sabotage peace just to prove it still has access to chaos. Vanessa said, "Ryan always did like interesting women." Hannah smiled. "Good. Then I'll try not to disappoint." No insecurity, no competition, no desperate attempt to win. And Ryan felt something shift inside him. Because a woman who knows who she is does not need to fight every woman who enters the room. Later that night, Ryan found Hannah outside on the balcony. He asked, "You okay?" She nodded. "Yeah, just needed air. Too many people pretending not to judge each other." Then she looked at him and said, "Vanessa is beautiful." Ryan froze. He said carefully, "She is." Hannah nodded. "She knows it too." Ryan waited, but Hannah didn't accuse him. She didn't ask if he still wanted her. She didn't make him pay for another woman's presence. She just said, "I'm not going to compete with someone for being looked at. That's not my game." Ryan looked at her. "What's your game?" Hannah smiled softly. "To be known?" And that sentence hit him harder than anything she could have said. Because that was the difference. Vanessa wanted to be desired. Hannah wanted to be known. And desire without knowing eventually becomes hunger with no home. A year later, Ryan proposed in their kitchen on a rainy Sunday morning, while Hannah was wearing sweatpants and trying to make pancakes that looked emotionally damaged. She turned around and saw him holding the ring. For once, she had no joke ready. Ryan said, "I used to think I wanted someone who made my life look impressive, but I think I want the person who makes my life feel real." Hannah cried, then laughed, then said, "These pancakes are terrible." Ryan said, "I know." She said yes. Years later, when people asked Ryan why he married her, he never gave the answer they expected. They wanted him to say she was beautiful, and she was. They wanted him to say she was kind, and she was. But the real answer was simpler, because I can breathe around her. And that was the whole truth. A man can date beauty. He can chase mystery. He can become addicted to women who make him prove himself over and over again. But eventually, if he grows up emotionally, he stops asking, "Who makes me feel powerful?" and starts asking, "Who makes me feel safe enough to be honest?" Because the woman a man stays with is not always the one who impressed him the fastest. It is often the one who made him feel human the fastest. Ryan didn't marry Hannah because she was the most polished woman in the room. He married her because she was the first woman in years who walked into the room without asking the room to define her. And that kind of confidence doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't compete. It simply exists. And the right person feels it immediately. So here's the real question. In a world where everyone is trying so hard to look unforgettable, would you still recognize the person who makes you feel at peace?